Hello, students and viewers. My name is Peyton Taylor, and this is going to be a video about a guide to a better understanding of why scores have been declining since 2020, which, as everybody knows, is when the pandemic hit really, really bad. Um, so first and foremost, the obvious is we all know that things were behind in 2020. We know that a lot of numbers have been declining in 2020 just because of everything being online. A lot of students were not prepared. They didn't have the right preparation for online classing because it's quite very different than being in an actual classroom. A lot of students' attention span is so short, so just being online in itself was just a terrible idea for a lot of students. But let's begin. Right. A really big question is since 2020, since the year after 2020, not 2020, are students becoming lazier because of online, or is the school system basically failing students? They're not meeting a lot of children needs. Um, there's been a decline in the performance issues of millions of students across the board. The problem with this is numbers are declining at every year, which raises questions concerning teachers, parents, school system, curriculum, funding from the school, which is very, very important. Um, the electronic evolution in schools makes work. It basically simplifies the work for a lot of students, so it doesn't require as much effort as it would. Um, is it making it less challenging? It's creating a failure in certain criteria needed to possess the tools needed to excel in certain subjects. Um, Test scores are a big problem, and this is basically creating the concern of a lot of parents, a lot of students, a lot of outside viewers like myself. Um, the question is, which systematic factor poses more of a threat for students that are not excelling at a normal rate? Who's to blame for declining Test scores. Well, I'm going to start off by the main issue is more than 100 million children than expected are failing behind the minimum proficiency level in reading as well as math. Um, the average scores from tests given last fall declined 4 points in reading and 9 points in math compared with tests given in, I'll just say 2020. We're going to leave out that 2019. And are the lowest in decades. The declines in reading were more pronounced for lower performing students but dropped across all percentiles. Scores are being monitored and analyzed from the starting year of the pandemic to 2023. So this whole time frame is from 2020 to 2023. In a big way that this could also help is family engagement. And this is when families and educators, including teachers and administrators, partner together to share the responsibility of supporting a student's learning. Educators can connect families with opportunities to actively contribute to the school community, set student goals. Setting student goals is very, very important for the student because it's like a gain and reward system where you're dealing with children. It sounds really not good to hear, but a student is going to perform better if they know that they're going to get rewarded for it, you know? Um, and creating strong home learning environments, which is obviously isn't realistic for a lot of students, but since it's not realistic, that leaves a lot of room for the teacher to be that big, impactful image for the child. Um, so, surrounding this debate, have systematic issues that kind of play in this controversy, which is basically all the outside forces of the child when the child is not in a controlled environment, which is the school. Education systems have become idle and becoming active. Governmental funding for schools is a big problem. A lot of children aren't funded with all the curriculum that's required. So teachers have to make up a lot of that, and some teachers don't care to be as like accurate with it. They just give it to the students, hope they pass so they can excel to the next grade, and the teacher's still going to be able to get checked. Failed systems are known to create less achieving students. Lacking any type of reward causes laziness and a very unenthusiastic mindset regarding education in a general sense. To understand, you must see that there is no side and rather observational comments that may do good for both parties involved, which is the parent and the teacher. Children are molded by their caretakers and educators, but the child is connected to so many outside forces that can affect success. This then lies to the parent, which then should counteract with the teacher. This is why the big controversy: should the parent and should the teacher work together to help the student, or should it lie strictly to the parent or just strictly to the teacher? Because if it lies strictly to the teacher, then the student is going to lack a lot of things that the parent needs to provide. If you leave it all to the parent and not the teacher, the parent can go so far, and then the teacher will be lacking in a lot of things that the student is going to need. Structure is a factor that's determined as lazy. Students abide by routines that are practiced regularly. Children in general need routines so they can get familiarized with anything that they're learning. This is a potent advantage to any type of success. Why is this a controversy? This is to say which factor possesses the most vital role in advocating a routine that will sustain a proficient consumption of learning tools, which is going to be really important, which is why routines are important, because you want to constantly reinforce the knowledge that the student is going to need. Because I'm sure if you tell the student one thing one time, it's going to go in one ear and not the other, which is also why it's a good thing to have teachers that are very interactive with their curriculum to make it fun so the student will want to do it more. Who is to be held accountable for the said issue? This question is tossed around into a big circle and it just goes round and round and round and round. With no one's really doing that much about it. The student themselves are the influence and the outside factors being the influencee. Influences obviously can vary depending on the student's age, learning style, and other factors. And it's also important to be very aware of what the student's learning style is so you can work with the child. Two sides to one problem creates controversy. The two problems will be the teacher and the parent, obviously. Teaching methods are being exposed as lazy and not directly inclusive to all student learning tools. And who holds more power when advocating for our students? Both parties have very specific strengths that will improve performance issues. Because there are things that parents can do that a teacher may not be able to do, and there's things teacher can do that the parent might not be able to do. So, but the most important thing to understand is neglect in general to the student is going to cause more harm. 5 key facts. Both parents and teachers play a very crucial role in helping students perform at a higher grade level. However, the extent to their influence may vary depending on the student's age, like I said, learning style. Expectation is the driving force to academic success amongst students. If the parent and the teacher holds the student in high regards, the student is more likely to perform better because their confidence is going to grow, because the student, the teacher, and the parent and the teacher is going to hold them in a very high expectation. And most children, no, well, let's not say most children, but students that have teachers that are able to make them feel like they can do it and hold them at a very higher expectation than most, it's going to give the child more confidence that they can do it, so then they will do it, if that makes sense. Studies show more parental involvement leads to improved academic outcomes when parents are involved in their children's schooling. And that just shows that students show higher academic achievement when both parties are involved. A lot of key dates in history. It's going to date from, like I said, 2020 all the way to 2023. This may get really jumbled up and confusing, but just bear with me. The average scores for student age 9 in 2022 declined 5 points since 2020. The largest score drop between the year 1990 from data shown. Average scores have also dropped 7 points in math when compared to 2020. This is the first ever score drop in math since the NCES began tracking students' achievement in the 1970s. And that is actually mind-boggling if you really think about it. The 2020 long-term assessment showed that scores in both math and reading for 9-year-olds were flat overall since the prior assessment in 2012, but lower performing students have significant declines. These students who struggled the most in the 10th percentile started losing the reading gains made over longer terms. And in math, there was a 13-point decrease amongst a lot of black students compared to a 5-point decrease amongst white students. And this has also resulted in a widening gap between these two student groups from 25 points in 2020 to 33 points in 2022. I know that was very confusing, but basically what a percentile is a percentile rank indicates how well a student performed in comparison to the students in the Pacific norm group. For example, in the same grade and subject, being in the percentile means that 95% of other students who took the exam scored at or below the standard value, which is like 50%. So, I hope that was not too confusing. These dates basically are just telling of how far our students have dropped since 2020. And it goes from 2 points all the way to 10 points. So each percentile, which is how well the student performed, has gone all the way from 2 points to 5 points to 8 points to 10 points, which basically means that it is declining every year. And it's not getting better, it's actually getting worse. So, a lot of questions just rise among that because you don't know who to blame. Because do you want to blame the student? Do you want to blame the teacher? Or do you want to blame the parent? So, that is all I have for today. Thank you.